My hands were shaking so bad that the card almost slipped through my fingers. I was standing in Shanice's living room, my daughter's house that I helped pay for, surrounded by my grandchildren Zion and Amara, who were 7 and 9 years old. They had those bright, hopeful faces that children get on Mother's Day when they think something special is about to happen. "Go on, Mama," Shanice said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite name yet. "Read it out loud so everybody can hear." Her husband Darnell was leaning against the kitchen counter with his arms crossed, wearing that smirk he always had when he thought he was being clever. I should have known something was wrong right then. Should have put that card down and walked out. But I'm 84 years old and I was raised to be polite, to trust family, to believe that your own child wouldn't hurt you on purpose. I opened the card. "Roses are red, violets are blue," I started reading, my voice getting quieter with each word. "You're getting too old, and frankly, we're through. You've been a burden for far too long. It's time for you to move along. Happy Mother's Day to the woman who takes and takes. Love, your daughter." The silence in that room was so heavy it felt like somebody had died. Little Amara's face crumpled up like she was about to cry. "Mama, that's mean," she whispered. "Hush up, Amara," Shanice snapped at her own daughter. Then she turned to me with her hands on her hips. "Well, you gonna say something, or you just gonna stand there looking pitiful?" I looked at my daughter, my only child, the baby girl I raised by myself after her daddy ran off when she was 3, and the girl I worked 2 jobs for, sometimes 3, the girl I put through college while I was cleaning office buildings at night and taking care of other people's children during the day. "Shanice, baby, I don't understand." "Of course you don't understand," she cut me off, her voice getting louder. "You never understand anything except how to be in the way. Do you know how much it costs to have you living in our guest room? Do you know how much your medications cost us? Your food? Your doctor appointments?" Darnell finally spoke up, pushing off from the counter. "Real talk, Miss Loretta? You're bleeding us dry. We got our own kids to think about. We got our own lives. And you're just here, always here, taking up space, taking our money, taking our time." I felt something crack inside my chest, not my heart, that was already broken. This was something deeper, something in my very soul. "But I give you money every month," I said softly, "from my Social Security. I help with the bills." "Your little Social Security check?" Shanice laughed, and it was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard come out of her mouth. "That doesn't even cover your medicine, Mama. We're tired of carrying you. We're done." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me tell you how I got here. Let me tell you about the life I lived before this moment when my own daughter decided I wasn't worth the air I breathe. I was born Loretta Mae Turner in 1941, right here in Atlanta. My mama was a seamstress, and my daddy worked at the railroad until his back gave out. We didn't have much, but we had love. We had church on Sundays. We had neighbors who looked out for each other. We had community. When I met Shanice's father, Robert Williams, I thought I had found my forever. We got married in 1964 at Ebenezer Baptist Church. The reception was in my mama's backyard with her famous peach cobbler and my aunt singing Etta James songs. I wore a dress my mama stayed up 3 nights straight to finish. Robert was handsome and charming, and for a few years, everything was good. Then Shanice came along in 1985, and I thought my life was complete. But when she was 3, Robert decided being a husband and father was too much responsibility. He left one Tuesday morning and never came back. No note, no goodbye, just gone. So I raised Shanice by myself. I worked as a home health aide during the day, taking care of elderly white folks in Buckhead. At night, I cleaned offices downtown. On weekends, I did hair in my kitchen for ladies in the neighborhood. Every penny I made went into keeping a roof over our heads and making sure Shanice had what she needed. I missed her school plays because I was working. I missed her basketball games because I was working. I missed her high school graduation practice because I was working, though I made it to the actual graduation, praise God. I wore the same 3 church dresses for 15 years so Shanice could have new school clothes every fall. When she wanted to go to Spelman College, I made it happen. I took out loans, I worked extra shifts, I sold my mama's china set that had been in our family for 3 generations. I did what I had to do because that's what mothers do. We sacrifice. Shanice graduated in 2007 with a degree in business. I was so proud I cried through the whole ceremony. She met Darnell 2 years later. He worked in IT and seemed like a good man. They got married in 2010, and I helped pay for half that wedding even though I was already 69 years old and my knees were starting to give out. They bought their house in 2012. When they were short on the down payment, I gave them $15,000. It was most of my savings, but Shanice was my baby. She needed help. What kind of mother would I be if I said no? When Zion was born in 2014, I moved in to help with the baby. Shanice said she needed me, said she couldn't afford childcare and maternity leave. So I came, thinking it would be temporary. Temporary turned into 11 years. I cooked, I cleaned, I watched the grandchildren. I did it all happily because I loved them, because family takes care of family. That's what my mama taught me. That's what I believed. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Shanice started talking to me different. Short, impatient, like I was bothering her just by existing. Darnell stopped saying hello when he came home from work. He'd walk right past me like I was a piece of furniture. The grandchildren still loved me, though. Amara would crawl into my bed at night when she had bad dreams. Zion would show me his drawings from school. They were my joy. But now, standing in that living room on Mother's Day with that hateful card in my hands, I realized something. My daughter didn't love me. Maybe she never had. Maybe I was just useful to her, and now that I was old and needed more help than I could give, I was disposable. "We want you out by the end of the month," Darnell said, checking his phone like this conversation was boring him. "We're turning your room into a home office." "Out?" I repeated. "Out where?" "There's a nice senior facility over on Memorial Drive," Shanice said, not meeting my eyes. "They take Medicaid. You'll be fine." I had been to that facility before. I used to work there back in the 90s. It smelled like industrial cleaner and sadness. The staff was overworked and underpaid. The residents sat in wheelchairs in the hallway, forgotten by their families, waiting to die. "Please," I heard myself say, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Please don't do this. I'm your mother." "And I'm tired of being your caretaker," Shanice exploded. "You had your life, Mama. You made your choices. You chose to be poor. You chose to have a baby you couldn't afford. You chose to stay alone instead of finding another husband. Those were your choices, and I'm not paying for them anymore." Every word was a knife. Every sentence was a wound. Zion was crying now, holding on to his sister. "Grandma, don't go," he sobbed. "Y'all take the kids upstairs," Darnell ordered. "This is grown folk business." But Amara wasn't moving. She ran to me and wrapped her little arms around my waist. "I don't want Grandma to leave." Shanice pulled her daughter away from me roughly. "Girl, I said go upstairs." That's when I knew I had to leave. Not at the end of the month, right then, because if I stayed one more minute in that house, I was going to break down completely. And I couldn't let them see that. Couldn't give them the satisfaction. I walked to the guest room that had been my home for 11 years. I packed my suitcase with my clothes, my Bible, my photo albums, and my mama's recipe book. Everything else, the furniture they said I could bring, the little TV, the houseplants I'd been growing, I left it all. 20 minutes later, I was standing on the front porch with my suitcase. "Where are you going to go?" Shanice asked from the doorway. She didn't sound concerned. She sounded annoyed, like I was inconveniencing her by not having a plan. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. And for the first time in 84 years, I felt something I'd never felt before. Not for anyone, not even for Robert when he left. I felt done. "Don't you worry about me," I said quietly. "You just worry about yourself." I called for a Uber, learned how to use that app from Zion, and waited at the curb. Shanice didn't invite me back inside. She just closed the door. The driver was a young black man named Terrence who tried to make small talk, but I couldn't manage it. He could tell something was wrong because he stopped asking questions and just drove. "Where to, ma'am?" he finally asked. I almost said my friend Beatrice's house. She'd been telling me for years that Shanice was using me. I should have listened. But I didn't want to burden Beatrice either. Didn't want to be the old woman nobody wanted. Then I remembered something. Something I hadn't thought about in years. "Take me to First National Bank on Peachtree Street," I said. Terrence glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "The bank closes in 30 minutes on Sunday, ma'am." "I know. That's why we need to hurry." I had Terrence wait in the car while I went inside. The bank was almost empty, just 2 tellers and a security guard who looked like he was ready to go home. I walked up to the counter where a young woman with beautiful braids was working. "Good afternoon," I said. "I need to access my safety deposit box." She smiled politely. "Of course. Can I have your name and ID?" "Loretta Mae Williams." She typed something into her computer, and then her eyes went wide. She looked at me, then back at the screen, then at me again. "Mrs. Williams, I'll need to get a manager. Just 1 moment, please." 5 minutes later, I was being escorted to the vault by the branch manager himself, a well-dressed man named Mr. Patterson who kept calling me ma'am and asking if I needed anything. They opened box 447. I hadn't looked inside it in over 40 years. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed with age. Inside that envelope were documents, deeds, bank statements, investment records. My hands were steady now as I looked at the papers, as I remembered what I had almost forgotten. You see, my mama might have been a seamstress, but her mama, my grandmother, had been smart, real smart. Back in the 1920s, she bought property in Atlanta when black folks weren't supposed to own nothing. She bought 3 houses and a corner store. She held on to that property through the Depression, through Jim Crow, through everything. When she died in 1963, she left everything to my mama. And when my mama died in 1995, she left everything to me. I had sold 2 of the houses to help pay for Shanice's college, but the 3rd house, the one over in the Virginia Highland neighborhood, I had kept. I'd rented it out for decades, and the property management company deposited the rent money into a separate account I never touched. I was saving it for Shanice's future, for my grandchildren's education. The corner store property I'd sold to a developer in 1998 for $180,000. That money went into investments that I never looked at again because I was too busy working, too busy raising Shanice, too busy surviving. Now, sitting in that bank vault, I looked at the current value of those investments. $1.7 million. And the house in Virginia Highland? The property management company had been begging me for years to sell it. The last appraisal, done just 6 months ago according to these papers, valued it at $890,000. I owned property worth nearly $1 million. I had investments worth over $1.5 million. And I'd been sleeping in my daughter's guest room, giving her my Social Security check, letting her call me a burden. The laughter started in my chest and bubbled up before I could stop it. I laughed until tears ran down my face. The bank manager looked concerned. "Mrs. Williams, are you all right?" "I'm perfect," I said, wiping my eyes. "I'm just perfect. Now I need to make some phone calls, and I need a cashier's check, and I need you to recommend a good lawyer." Mr. Patterson smiled. "I can certainly help with all of that." As I left the bank an hour later, I had $50,000 in a new checking account, another account set up with my investment funds, the deed to my house, and an appointment with Crawford & Associates, the best estate planning attorneys in Atlanta. I also had a new phone number that Shanice didn't know. Terrence was still waiting, bless his heart. I told him to take me to the Ritz-Carlton. "You sure, ma'am?" he asked gently. "I'm sure, baby. I'm more sure than I've been about anything in years." I checked into a suite on the 8th floor. The woman at the front desk didn't even blink when I paid for a month in advance. She just smiled and said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Williams." That night, I sat in a bathtub bigger than my guest room at Shanice's house. I ordered room service, shrimp and grits that cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. I ate every bite. And then I opened my new laptop, bought from the hotel gift shop, and started planning. My daughter thought I was a burden. She thought I was broke and helpless and disposable. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. Chapter 2. That first week at the Ritz-Carlton, I felt like I was living somebody else's life. Every morning I woke up in clean sheets that smelled like lavender. I had breakfast brought to my room, real eggs, not the powdered kind, with turkey bacon and fresh fruit. I spent my days meeting with lawyers, financial advisors, and real estate agents. My lawyer, a sharp sister named Vivian Crawford, sat across from me in her downtown office and listened to my whole story without interrupting once. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and shook her head. "Mrs. Williams, I'm going to be straight with you. Your daughter has been financially abusing you for years. What she did on Mother's Day, that was just the mask finally coming off." "I gave her everything," I said quietly. "I know you did. And that's exactly why we're going to make sure she doesn't get another dime." Vivian pulled out a legal pad. "First, we're changing your will immediately. Second, we're going to document everything, every dollar you gave them, every contribution you made to that household. Third, we're setting up trusts for your grandchildren that their parents can't touch. And fourth," she smiled, "we're going to make sure that when the truth comes out, it comes out loud." Over the next 2 weeks, I did things I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator named Jerome, who discovered that Shanice and Darnell weren't struggling at all. Darnell made $120,000 a year. Shanice made $85,000 managing a boutique in Buckhead. They had $43,000 in credit card debt from vacations, designer clothes, and a boat they bought last summer that I never even knew about. They weren't poor. They were greedy. Jerome also found out something else. That $15,000 I gave them for their house down payment? Shanice had told Darnell it was only $5,000. She'd pocketed $10,000 for herself and never told him. "Your daughter's been playing both sides," Jerome said, showing me the bank records. "She's been taking money from you and lying to her husband about it." I wasn't even surprised anymore, just sad. My financial advisor, a kind man named Mr. Chen, helped me understand my full situation. After taxes and reorganizing everything, I had about $2.3 million in total assets. Not Jeff Bezos money, but more than enough for a woman my age to live comfortably for the rest of my life. "Mrs. Williams, you could buy a beautiful home. You could travel. You could do anything you want," he said. "What about my grandchildren?" I asked. "We can set up education trusts for them. When they turn 18, they'll have money for college, buying a home, starting a business, whatever they need. Their parents won't be able to touch it." That made me feel better. Zion and Amara didn't deserve to suffer because their mama was cruel. 3 weeks after Mother's Day, I got a call from Beatrice. We'd been friends since 1967, and she was the only person besides my lawyers who knew where I was. "Loretta, girl, you need to hear this," she said, barely able to contain herself. "Shanice has been calling everybody, the whole church, all your old friends, even Pastor Reynolds, crying about how you just disappeared and won't answer your phone. She's acting like you're missing." "Is that right?" I said calmly. "She even filed a missing persons report. The police came to my house yesterday asking if I'd seen you. I told them you were fine, and that maybe they should ask Shanice why her mama ran away on Mother's Day." I smiled. "What did they say?" "The officer, young brother named Mitchell, he got real quiet and wrote something down in his notebook. Then he asked me if I knew anything about elder abuse. Loretta, I told him everything you told me. My smile faded. Beatrice, you didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Because what they did to you was wrong, and I'm not going to help them pretend it didn't happen. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mama? Mama, is that you? Shanice's voice was panicked. Where are you? Why haven't you been answering your phone? We've been worried sick. I let the silence stretch out. Mama, please, I'm sorry about what happened on Mother's Day. I was stressed. I didn't mean those things. You know I didn't mean them. You meant every word, I said quietly. And that's okay. You told me the truth. Now I'm telling you the truth. Don't call this number again. Wait, Mama, please, we need to talk. Can you just come home so we can— That was never my home, Shanice. I just lived there. I hung up. She called back 17 times. I blocked the number. Then Darnell started calling from his phone, then from Shanice's work phone, then from numbers I didn't recognize. They left voicemails that started with apologies and ended with threats about getting lawyers involved, about having me declared mentally incompetent, about keeping me from the grandchildren. Vivian listened to every voicemail and smiled. They're panicking. They must have realized something. They had. Because the next day, I got a call from First National Bank. Apparently, Shanice had gone there claiming she had power of attorney over my finances and demanding access to my accounts. When they told her no such arrangement existed, she'd made a scene. She threatened to sue the bank, Mr. Patterson told me. She said you were being taken advantage of by scammers and that she was protecting you. I informed her that you were of completely sound mind and had been conducting your own affairs quite well. Thank you, I said. There's more. She asked about your account balance. Of course, we couldn't tell her anything. But I think she knows you have money, Mrs. Williams. She's going to come looking harder now. He was right. The next Sunday, Shanice showed up at Ebenezer Baptist Church where I'd been attending since I was a child. I hadn't been back since moving out, but Beatrice told me later what happened. Shanice stood up during prayer requests and tearfully told the whole congregation that her elderly mother was missing, possibly suffering from dementia, and that she feared I was being exploited by strangers. She begged anyone with information to contact her immediately. Pastor Reynolds, who'd known me for 40 years, invited Shanice to his office after service. He told her that you were fine and that maybe she should examine her own conscience, Beatrice reported gleefully, said something about honoring thy mother and father. Shanice left crying, but girl, they weren't real tears, I could tell. I started going back to church the next Sunday, wore a new dress from Nordstrom, and sat right in the front row. When Shanice saw me, her mouth fell open. I just smiled and turned back to face the pulpit. After service, she tried to corner me in the parking lot, but Beatrice, Pastor Reynolds, and half the deacon board formed a wall between us. Mrs. Williams has asked not to be disturbed, Pastor Reynolds said firmly. I suggest you respect her wishes. She's my mother, Shanice screamed. You can't keep me from my own mother. I can keep myself from you, I said, stepping forward. And I am. Now go home to your children. They need you more than I do. The look on her face was ugly. You can't hide forever. We know you have money now. We know you've been lying to us about being poor. The whole parking lot went quiet. I never lied, I said calmly. You never asked. You just assumed, and you know what they say about assuming. I got in Beatrice's car, and we drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see Shanice standing there, shaking with rage. That night, Vivian called me. We need to talk. Can you come to my office tomorrow? The next morning, I sat in her conference room while she laid out a stack of papers. Your daughter hired a lawyer. A bad one, thankfully. He sent us a demand letter claiming you're mentally incompetent and that Shanice should be appointed your guardian. He's also demanding an accounting of all your assets and threatening to sue for financial elder abuse. I laughed. Actually laughed. Financial elder abuse? That's rich. It's also ridiculous. We have everything documented. Your mental competency evaluations, your financial records, witness statements from the bank, the police report about what happened on Mother's Day. But here's what I think we should do. She leaned forward. We file a restraining order. We make this public. We let everyone know exactly what your daughter did and why you left. That'll destroy her reputation, I said. Good. She tried to destroy you. Vivian's eyes were fierce. Mrs. Williams, you've spent your whole life protecting her. It's time to protect yourself. She was right. So we filed. The court hearing was set for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, I made another decision. I sold the rental house in Virginia Highland for $890,000. With that money and some of my investments, I bought something I'd always dreamed of but never thought I could afford. A villa in Spain. It was in a small town called Ronda, built right into the cliffs. 3 bedrooms, a garden with lemon trees, and a view of the mountains that made me cry the first time I saw it on the video call with the real estate agent. The town had a small black expat community. Artists, writers, teachers, people who'd left America looking for peace and found it in the Spanish sunshine. I would move there in 6 months, after everything was settled. You're really doing it, Beatrice said when I told her. You're really leaving. I am. But you're coming to visit, right? Try and stop me. The court hearing arrived on a humid June morning. I wore a purple suit, my mama's favorite color, and walked into that courtroom with my head high. Shanice and Darnell were there with their lawyer, a sweaty man who kept mopping his forehead. Shanice looked shocked when she saw me. I guess she expected me to look weak, broken. Instead, I looked healthy, strong, free. The judge was a black woman about Shanice's age named Judge Monroe. She read through all the filed documents with a neutral expression, then looked up. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she said. Mrs. Williams, your daughter is claiming you're mentally incompetent and that she should control your finances because you're being exploited. Is that correct? That's correct, Your Honor, Shanice's lawyer said. And Mrs. Williams, you're filing for a restraining order because your daughter and her husband verbally abused you, threw you out of their home on Mother's Day, and are now harassing you despite your clear request to be left alone. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Vivian said. Judge Monroe looked at Shanice. Ms. Williams Jefferson, do you deny that you gave your mother a cruel card on Mother's Day and asked her to leave your home? Shanice shifted uncomfortably. I was having a bad day, Your Honor. I said things I didn't mean, but my mother needs help. Did you or did you not call your mother a burden? The judge interrupted. Silence. Answer the question. Yes, but did you or did you not tell her she'd been taking and that you were done carrying her? Shanice's face was red. Yes, but if you knew the full context. I've read the full context. I've read the witness statements. I've read the police report. I've also reviewed your mother's medical records, her psychiatric evaluation, and her financial statements. Judge Monroe looked at me with something like respect. Mrs. Williams, you appear to be in excellent mental health. You've managed your finances responsibly. You've made clear, documented decisions about your life and your assets. There is absolutely no evidence of incompetence or exploitation. Your Honor, Shanice's lawyer stood up. My client is concerned because her mother is making erratic decisions, selling property, planning to move to another country. Those aren't erratic decisions, Judge Monroe said sharply. Those are the decisions of a woman who finally realized she doesn't have to set herself on fire to keep ungrateful people warm. She looked at Shanice again. You threw your 84-year-old mother out of your home on Mother's Day. You called her a burden after she helped raise your children, helped pay for your home, and gave you thousands of dollars over the years. And now that you've discovered she has money, you're back, claiming concern. Where was this concern on Mother's Day? Shanice was crying now. But I felt nothing. Those tears were for herself, not for me. "I'm granting Mrs. Williams' restraining order," Judge Monroe said. "You and your husband are to have no contact with her except through attorneys. If she chooses to have a relationship with her grandchildren, that's her decision and hers alone. As for your petition for guardianship, it's denied. Frankly, I'm appalled that you brought this to my courtroom." She banged her gavel. "We're done here." Outside the courthouse, news cameras were waiting. Somehow the story had leaked. The elderly mother, the cruel daughter, the hidden fortune. I gave one interview. "I'm not doing this for revenge," I told the reporter. "I'm doing this for me. I spent my whole life taking care of other people. Now I'm taking care of myself. And if that makes me selfish, then I guess I'm selfish. But I call it survival." The interview went viral. By that evening, I had messages from old friends, church members, even some of the families I used to work for. Everyone had something to say about ungrateful children and the importance of respecting your elders. Shanice tried to do damage control, posting on Facebook about how much she loved me and how this was all a misunderstanding. The comments section destroyed her. Someone had shared the court records. Everyone knew the truth. 2 months later, I signed the final papers for my Spain villa. I spent my last weeks in Atlanta tying up loose ends. I set up the education trusts for Zion and Amara, $250,000 each, untouchable until they turned 18. I donated $100,000 to Ebenezer Baptist Church. I gave Beatrice $50,000 because she'd been a true friend when I needed one most. And I wrote a letter to my grandchildren, to be given to them when they turned 18, explaining everything. Telling them I loved them. Telling them that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. My last Sunday in Atlanta, Pastor Reynolds invited me to speak to the congregation. I stood at that pulpit where I'd watched so many powerful women speak over the years, and I told my story. Not for sympathy, for truth. "I learned something these past few months," I said, looking out at all those faces, some crying, some angry, some just listening. "I learned that you can love people with your whole heart and still need to walk away from them. I learned that sacrifice is beautiful until it becomes suicide. I learned that being a good mother doesn't mean letting your children destroy you." The church erupted in amens. "I'm leaving Atlanta. I'm starting a new life in a place where nobody knows me as anybody's mother or anybody's burden. I'm just going to be Loretta. And I'm going to be happy." I smiled. And if that sounds selfish to you, then I guess at 84 years old, I've finally earned the right to be selfish. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. 3 days later, I boarded a plane to Spain. Beatrice came with me for the first month to help me settle in. We spent our days walking through Ronda's old streets, drinking coffee in sunny plazas, meeting my new neighbors. The expat community welcomed me with open arms. They'd heard my story. It had made news even in Spain. And they understood. "You're safe here," a woman named Patricia told me. She was 72 from Chicago and had left her own toxic family 15 years ago. "You're home." And she was right. I was home. I still think about Zion and Amara sometimes. I hope they grow up understanding that love should never break you. I hope when they read my letter, they'll know their grandma loved them enough to save herself so she could be whole for them someday. As for Shanice, I pray for her. I pray she learns that you can't treat people like trash and expect them to stick around. I pray she teaches her children better than she learned. But I don't pray for reconciliation. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. I'm sitting in my garden right now as I finish writing this. The sun is setting over the mountains, turning everything gold. I'm drinking Spanish wine and eating olives from trees in my own yard. Tomorrow, I'm taking a day trip to Granada with some new friends. I'm 84 years old. I'm free. I'm happy. And I'm finally living for myself. It took a cruel card on Mother's Day to wake me up. It took losing my daughter to find myself. But I'm found now. and I'm never going back. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.